Hello, welcome. So, I am really excited today because this is a topic that is huge for people, absolutely huge. Most women go back to their abusive partner and they will be abused again. 98% of the time, the abuse doesn't just return, it actually gets worse. It gets worse. So, the brutal truth is only about 1 to 5% of abusers actually change long term, even with intervention. And that's really important because we talk so much about what if they get therapy? What if they go to anger management? What if you stay and they never change and it just continues to get worse and worse and worse, right? Truth is 95% of the time that new him, it's the same. It's just a new tactic. It's a reset. It's a trap. And so this video is, and this live is for people who are really wondering whether or not he's changing. And I want this video to be what gives you the clarity that you need. And there's a really phenomenal book, Why Does He Do That by Lindy Bancroft, which has been really eye-opening for a lot of people. But I want to talk about this in a lot more depth so that people really have what they need to make this decision. So first of all, who am I? My name is Lisa Sunny, and I am the founder and owner of Stronger Than Before Coaching. And fundamentally, I help women break trauma bonds. I help women rebuild their self-worth and really stop questioning what they already know deep down. So if this type of content is something that you want to see, please click subscribe. I've helped honestly hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women in one-on-one sessions see through manipulation and just finally detach and do it in a way that is safe and be confident about your decision, because I know that confusion of should I leave? Should I not leave? Is it the right time? But this topic of can they change is so important. It really matters because false hope is one of the worst traps that you can find yourself in these abusive relationships. Staying stuck can really cost you emotionally and financially, physically, spiritually. It costs you a lot. So we want to believe that the person is changing. And I completely understand that. So some of the most common reasons for why a survivor just really wants to believe that this person is changing is cognitive dissonance, right? You're torn between knowing that he's toxic, knowing that he's abusive, and that you just hope desperately that this time will be different, that he'll get it. Sometimes even that there's going to be this epiphany. Maybe if I leave, then he'll finally understand that I was serious and that I'm really going to leave. The other one is a sunken cost fallacy. I first heard that in the context of business, right? But fundamentally, you've already given him so much of your time, you feel like you can't just throw it away. You've already invested a decade. You've already invested 20 years, 5 years. You can't give up now. And that's the carrot dangling in front of you. Like, if I just love him more, if I just try harder, if I just stop doing this, if he just, gets the promotion that he's been so upset about, that's sunken cost fallacy. But you're throwing good money after bad. You're throwing your life into this relationship and nothing's changing, right? Another reason is intermittent reinforcement. Those good moments, they're so powerful. And what I see often is he is the knife and the Band-Aid, the pain and the comfort. So when the good moments are so powerful, they tend to override the bad moments. Another reason, societal pressure. Messages like every marriage has its problems, right? Or it takes two to tango. Forgiveness is really powerful. God wants you to forgive. All of these things keep you really, really stuck. Fear of regret is also a huge one. What if he changes for the next person? What if the problem was you and you go and leave and he's not the problem? You're the problem. So it's not solved by ending it. What if they're better in the future? What if they change as soon as you leave? What if they don't? And this is the rest of your life, right? The truth is, and this is a Lundy Bancroft quote, most abusers don't change because they don't think that they're the problem. So you first have to convince them that they're the problem. And I wish you the very best of luck. Now, I'm talking about abusers, but this can apply to people who are narcissistic, as in on the spectrum, or people who have the personality disorder, but they don't change. Now, a person with a true clinical disorder, they're not changing. But the truth is, even the ones that don't meet the criteria for the diagnosis, they're not changing either. The real truth about change is that it takes years, not weeks. It doesn't take months. It takes years. Do you know how much money that costs to be in that kind of intensive therapy and that type of emotional commitment that it takes to really do the work, not just to sit there in the chair and use therapy language, right? I mean, therapy talk and weaponized therapy has been a hot topic in the last few years, and it makes sense. But healing is this long, quiet process. It's not something that's dramatic or fast or brought on by some epiphany because you finally left and you finally or finally threatened to leave. Real change, real accountability is no excuses. None of this like you did it too. Okay, fine, I'm bad, but we're both bad. We both have things to work on. I actually really refer to that as feigned accountability because it's not true. True accountability is just, I did this, I own this, and I will do better. And there is no, but also you, because one would expect that if they were healthy and they were taking all this wonderful accountability, that would prompt you to do the same, or that they would see you're not also taking accountability and make their own decisions. But in an abusive relationship, it's not the job of the victim to take accountability for reacting to abuse. Are you not reacting well to abuse? What's the best way to react to abuse? Leave, I realize, but that's not always possible and certainly not easy when it is possible. But something that's really key here is that love does not change abusers, right? If love was enough, I promise you that your pain would have already transformed him. Dr. Ramani has said that if an abuser is truly changing, it'll be boring. So when you're still seeing a lot of this volatile behavior and the emotional roller coaster, you know that that's not it. Now, a myth that a lot of people talk about is like narcissists will never go to therapy. That's actually not true. And I think that especially as therapy becomes welcomed in life and therapy becomes something that people do, and I think that a lot of narcissistic abusers in particular will actually go to therapy to learn the language and to show, see how good I'm doing, see I'm in therapy, I'm not a narcissist. Some will go and some will not go, and even the ones that go tend not to get anything out of it because it takes decades. Okay, therapy is not proof. Many abusers use it as a sort of image control or manipulation, but the point is that it's not real work. Time is the only proof, and it's really over time. I want to be clear, a long period of time. This isn't like we haven't gotten into a fight in 2 weeks, or it's been a month. And no, it is literally impossible. I don't care if you did 30 sessions of therapy in the last 30 days. The only way to know if it's real is consistency over time. And there's a real interesting trap here that I want to highlight because it's fascinating. So many people will highlight this. How can the abuser show you that they're changing if you don't take them back or you don't let them stay if you're already still in the relationship? And it seems so valid, right? He needs to show you. So obviously you have to let him back in. But I think the fact that they're bulldozing their way back in without demonstrating the change from the outside or allowing you to leave the relationship, that's proof right there, because you're asking to exit the relationship. You're asking for them to go no contact or let you go. And what they're saying is, no, I don't want to. I prioritize what I want. I demand to show you that I've changed. That's proof they're not changing. I want you to really see that, okay? Now, there's a lot of ways that you can see fake change. And so rushing the process, right? This speed. I've changed. Let's move forward. The past is the past. Why are you always bringing up old? Because they want you to move so quickly. It's very reminiscent of the beginning stages of an abusive relationship where things are moving so fast you can't really see and you don't have time to like pick up on your own feelings. This is another example of that. Real change actually respects your pace, not his urgency. So if you're seeing this, but I need to show you and let's move on and let's just forget the past, a clean slate. Clean slate is a red flag, okay? Another one is that they're going to demand credit, right? I haven't even yelled at you in a week. I've been so good lately. I haven't even been cheating on you. I haven't even been, I've helped more around the house. I've done more. We went for a walk 2 nights ago. All of these things, they want credit. They want an applause. They want balloons for the bare minimum. If he's pressuring you to kind of get over it and demanding credit for these things, red flags. If they're blaming you, you said you forgave me, and now you're bringing this up again. If you would just forgive me, then we wouldn't even have these problems. I know I was abusive, but you, insert excuse here, made me do it. You made me, When they shift it onto you, huge red flag. That is fake change. Another one is performative therapy, like we were talking about, right? I was going to therapy. My therapist said that I'm not the problem. My therapist said, you need to be more whatever. They're bragging about therapy, but they're still behaving abusively. Real therapy, real work, it's actually going to lead to humility, right? Not some theatrical display of, I just learned a new word in therapy this week. You're not respecting my boundaries. That's not true, right? When they are still manipulating other people, maybe they're painting you as the victim, to family, to friends, to a couples therapist. They're still sort of positioning themselves as the victim. Huge sign. Love bombing, that can come back in relationships, right? Where you thought it was done, and now here you are again in that sort of hoovering stage. You might be overwhelmed with kindness and flowers. Like it feels too perfect. He's doing all the things. You've told him all the things he needs to do, and he's doing every single one, making no mistakes, and it's overwhelming you. How long can he keep that up? And the last kind of big primary one is no true accountability. There is still a deflection. There's still a justification or a downplay. You know, I've had a lot of clients in my one-on-one sessions where they might talk about, like, he's changing and he's in therapy and he's trying. I mean, he's still not going to say the word abuse. Like he won't label it that, but everything else he's doing. Why won't he label it abuse? There's a detachment that's kind of necessary for them, right? Like it's bad, but not abusive. They don't want that label. And yet the behavior is objectively abusive. So all of that are really big signs of fake change that you can look out for. Now, let's keep on that theme and talk about what does real change look like. So I'm going to go over 5 things, but I want to talk about why these things are rare. So this is unlikely to be your situation. No expectation of reconciliation. Can you imagine? He's changing for himself. It's not to win you back, because you see that very commonly, right? I'll go to therapy, I'll blah, blah, blah. But what if you said, and in fact, mental healness has said this before. If you say, okay, I'm glad, go to therapy, have fun, I'm still not getting back together with you. It's kind of a test, right? I know that feels like game playing, but hear me out, hear him out. He's changing for himself, not to win you back. That means that he has an actual investment in the behavior being different for anyone, that it's not just some tactic to get you. So if there's a lot of pressure to reconcile, it is not about healing, it is about control. The consistency over time is big, big, big. No backsliding, no outbursts, no emotional bait. And I know, right? Like you're expecting perfection overnight. I tell you, the examples I can come up with, it's almost like I've been through it, right? This whole, like, you're expecting me to change like this. Oh, what, I can't have an off day? Oh, you know, and they get all upset with you. Listen, it's not that there's never, ever anything that goes wrong. It does not that you go from abuse to perfection overnight, because that's not how real change happens. I'm describing that it takes a long time. But when there is a backslide or an outburst or anything, it's like, ooh, you're right. You're right. I was gaslighting you. Let me take this to my therapist. You're right. Let me process that. Let me think about that. Let me take 10 minutes. Let me think. They're processing it, or just, you're right. You're right. That was rude. I shouldn't have said that. You're right. That's me backsliding. Owning it. Consistency over time. Remember that abusiveness is fundamentally a choice. So can they stop it quickly? Yeah, but they can't maintain it without a new belief system. Genuine empathy and ownership. And empathy, we're talking about a true clinical narcissist. Yeah, that's very unlikely, because they generally don't have a lot of empathy, if any. But even sort of like your average abuser who's not necessarily diagnosable, the thing is empathy would be like, I just manipulated you. You're right. I see that. There's no blaming. There's no excuses. I hurt you, and that's on me. Not, well, we're both toxic, or fine, I had a slip up, but you, right? And that shift, it's just focused on themselves. Behavioral changes, not just words, right? He's acting differently with everyone else. He's being nice to everyone else in front of you. And it seems like he's changing, but it's not the same when you two are alone. Maybe things can get a little muddy or a little blurry when they're not being overtly abusive anymore. So if you consider like a scale or a spectrum of abuse, wonderful, there's something in between that sort of not particularly abusive, but it's like the absence of abuse. It can feel good. It can feel like change. That's not change. That's fake. It's not going to last. And so if you have to sort of chase this, if he says he's changing and he's using the right words and he's talking like he's changed, but you're not really seeing it in action consistently, that's a problem. Respecting your boundaries, which is very rare, especially on a consistent basis. So even if it costs him access to you, you hear me? Even if it costs him access to you, he respects your boundaries. He's not testing you. He honors them. If you need space, he gives you space. If you need time with your friends, you go out with your friends. And there's no punishment, not even a silent one. You get it. Most abusers in like a batterer intervention program, they drop out before completion. Did you know that? Because even when it's court ordered, they often do not complete it. They don't think they need to, right? Real change is shown in the hardest moments, not in the easy ones. That's really key. So the new him, it can feel really convincing. And I get that, I fell for it too at one point. But the cycle of abuse can really convince you of that honeymoon phase. It always makes you feel like this time is going to be different, right? This time is different. He finally gets it. He says this. He's doing this. He went to therapy this time. He never went before. He admitted this. He said whatever. He's finally taking the garbage out, whatever it looks like. But that honeymoon phase always makes you feel, but the cycle of abuse always goes in a circle. It always does. Now, the other piece is trauma bond. Now, if you're in a trauma bond, which fundamentally is an unhealthy attachment that exists in a relationship where there's abuse mixed with devaluation, mixed with kindness, mixed with flowers. So it's this cycle. Your brain is craving the highs, but especially after the lows. So when something's bad, it's like, oh, you think that's when you're going to leave. I'm finally going to leave this time. But you're craving the high so much that it's really, really hard to leave. But that makes it really hard to see that this is a cycle because you're so desperate to get back to that high and to get that dopamine hit. Abusers really know how to mimic healing when it benefits them. And so you really want to look at manipulation versus what growth really looks like in practice, which we've just discussed some of. Fear of regret. I can't tell you how often I see that. Regret that you should never have left. What if I leave and he really does change, But even if he does that actually undo what he did to you? No, it doesn't. In their playbook, their tactics, just they perfect them every time you take them back. They're going to perfect their tactics every single time. And one thing that they learn is that they don't have to change to get you back. They just have to say that they've changed to get you back. So if any of this is really hitting home and you're still kind of second guessing what's real, I created a course to walk you through this process. It's called the Trauma Bond Recovery Course. And it teaches you how to break your trauma bond, how to spot fake change with clarity, to stop questioning yourself. So if you're just exhausted from this tug of war, check out the Trauma Bond Recovery Course. But the truth is, if you're still really not sure, which is a really valid place to be, right? We're often not sure. Don't rush yourself, right? Real change is not going to disappear because you take your time, right? I need to know this week. I'm not waiting around. I'm not going to start therapy unless you already know they're not changing. But real change is something that they're committed to. So if there's any rush for an answer, you should be able to you should have the freedom and autonomy to take as much time as you need. There's no reason to rush this. And I want you to observe, not to kind of just engage with everything. Step back, and just kind of watch to see if things match. Don't call them out. Don't say, but you just watch and collect this data in your own mind so that you can start to look at the patterns and really see if this change is fundamentally happening or you're being sold something. Set boundaries, but distance be the test. This is why I don't agree that they need to be there to show you that they've changed. One of the best ways for them to show you is to leave you alone. And I get in when you're in a trauma bond, like you want them to leave you alone and you also don't. I have a lot of clients that really want to be sought after. And I mean, especially with the myth that all narcissists hoover and will try to get you back, and that's not necessarily true. It can feel really sad when they're not trying to get you back. But let that be a sign of good change. If they're desperately begging you to come back, I'm not saying only an abuser would do that, but if you're in an abusive relationship or coming out of one or out of one, it was with an abuser. So that's the context that we're talking about this. It's abuse. I want you to trust yourself. And I know that's incredibly hard because frankly, they destroy your self-trust, but you don't need more proof. You need more self-trust. How can you build that? How can you tell yourself, I already know this, right? I already know this. Bancroft, the author of Why Does He Do That? Ludney Bancroft also says abusers convince others that they've changed before they actually have. You're one of those people. They'll convince all kinds of people. They'll convince therapists even, right? But 70% of women who leave will question if they made the right choice. That's a stat from the Trauma Recovery Institute. Just validate that doubt is really normal, but staying in limbo isn't normal. So this unknown, I really believe you know already. You're just afraid, and I get it, to actually make a decision. So I help people break free. I coach women who feel really stuck in confusion and they just need somebody to help them see clearly and just detach and stay free. And I think having a guide makes a really big difference, right? Change is hard, but I think it's even harder when you don't know what you need to do to get yourself out of it. So whether you need coaching, a qualified therapist, someone who gets it, the course, or even a free resource, strongerthanbefore.ca is my website. You can check that out. I've got resources at all different price points, but the Trauma Bond Recovery course is going to be just a game changer. You can log into it anytime or work with me one-on-one. Truth is, real change is slow and rare, and it does not require you to be different and to accept this. You just need to see that you're worth not being in an abusive relationship. If you're waiting to feel sure before you act, I want you to know that you're going to be stuck forever. I don't know that there's a day that you wake up and you go, yeah, today's the day. This makes sense. This makes sense. This is the right time. This is the perfect time to end it, because you're still confused, right? One of my most favorite quotes, I have no idea who said it, but I love it, is the best predictor of future behavior is actually past behavior. How they have been is how they will be. It is so rare to see any type of change in someone who's abusive. So an action step that you can take is, I want you to write down 3 reasons that you keep doubting yourself. And I want you to ask yourself, are they based on fact or are they based on fear? And if this video helped you see anything clearer, I want you to hit subscribe. I post videos all the time. I go live regularly. So please check out all of my other content. Check out my website and my other social media platforms. And thank you so much for being here. And I'm just going to check out some of the comments. New here. Does this ever really happen though? Like fundamentally, no, right? I think that's kind of the point that I want to make, is that fundamentally, no, they don't change. It is so rare. It's so rare that there's no statistics on it. So yeah, they really don't. But I think people want to see that. And I get it. You want so badly for them to change. They are telling you, and actually more than change, because I know there's a lot of pushback about that, right? Like, oh, women trying to change men. Change him back into the person that he sold you from the get-go. I think that's a really fundamental distinction right there. They tell you who they are. They show you who they are. None of this is real in the beginning of these abusive relationships. So you want that person back. And they're telling you that they are that person, but that you made them stop being that person. It's your behavior that changed. If you wouldn't be so this, then I wouldn't have to that. You see that often. Someone wrote, it's frustrating and sad that it feels like you're talking directly to me about what's happening in my life over the last 2 weeks. Yeah, she even used the words clean slate. That's really sad. I'm sorry, I hope that it's eye-opening though, because when I'm using that language and like, this is the language of abusers, and you're hearing it in your own relationship and you're wondering, is this abusive? Ask yourself why your partner sounds like an abuser if they're not an abuser. Because I'm a firm believer, if it walks like a duck and acts like a duck, it's a duck. And you don't need to be a veterinarian to know what a duck looks like. Someone asked, what about if she's the abuser? Nothing fundamentally changes, unless I'm specifically talking about the reasons people commit abuse, because men have very different reasons for committing abuse than women, often, not always. But I mean, someone else wrote, it's the same. Men don't usually have to worry about the women overpowering them in an attack. Generally, true. There's a few other differences, but fundamentally, yeah. But talking about that mask at the beginning, it's very true. They're mirroring you, and they're building all of this. And then remember that they won you over then through lies and manipulation. Why would it be different now? They know you better now. They're more likely to get you now. So I really, really want you to push back at the concept that they are changing or that they've had some epiphany, and really slow it down and think, is this possible that this is not real change at all? So please subscribe to my channel if you're not already. And thank you so much to everybody for being here and watching this video.